Now we'll discuss one more important topic, that is the cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system. So cardiovascular system, as you know, it is a very important system through which the blood will be circulating throughout the body. So the cardiovascular system is divided for descriptive purposes into two parts. One is the circulatory system and the second is the lymphatic system. Usually we think lymphatic system is a separate system, but actually it is part of the cardiovascular system. How it is related, we'll discuss more in detail when we come to the lymphatic system. Here we'll just briefly introduce it. So you should remember the cardiovascular system include the circulatory system, which is the blood circulation, and the lymphatic system also. Okay. So the circulatory system consists of the heart, which acts as the pump, as well as the blood vessels through which the blood circulates. Okay. So the circulatory system, including the heart and the blood vessels. Okay, that is the circulatory system. Then we have the lymphatic system, where it consists of the lymph nodes, lymphatic vessels, as well as a colorless fluid. Just like here we have the blood flowing through the blood vessels, here there is a colorless fluid flowing, that is called as the lymph will be flowing through the lymphatic system. So now today we'll study about the cardiovascular, the circulatory system, and in the next class we'll discuss the lymphatic system. So the cardiovascular system, especially the circulatory system, consists of mainly of the heart. The main primary organ of the circulatory system is the heart. So the heart, as we can describe it as a hollow muscular organ. It is a hollow muscular organ. This is the heart here. So here you can see this is in a cadaver. You can see the live heart. There is the side view. So here are the ribs cut and all the structures have been removed. These are the vertebrae behind, and in between this is present in the middle mediastinum. This is the heart. So it is a hollow muscular organ, hollow because there will be cavities through which the blood will be flowing. So it is hollow as well as muscular. There are no bones in the heart. Heart has special muscle called as the cardiac muscle. So it is a muscular organ, almost the size of a fist, and it is almost 300 grams in case of female, and almost 350 grams in case of male, slightly higher in weight in case of the male. And it has four chambers and found in the chest between the lungs. As you can see here, it is found in the chest between the two lungs, the right and the left lung. In between is the heart. And it is covered by a membrane called as pericardium. So the whole of the heart is covered by a membrane. If you can see here, there is a membrane that is called as the pericardium. Okay. Okay. Peri means outside and cardium means the heart, the outer covering of the heart, that is called as the pericardium. Pericardial space is fluid filled to nourish and protect the heart. And there is a small space between the two layers of the serous pericardium, visceral and the parietal layer. So in between there is a small space filled with the serous fluid. Coming to the position of the heart, it lies in the thoracic cavity behind the sternum. It is behind us. Here will be the sternum, and behind the sternum, this is the side view. As I said, this is the side view. Here in the front will be the ribs and the sternum, and behind this is the vertebrae, and here in between is the heart. So it lies in the thoracic cavity behind the sternum. Sternum will be in the front, it just behind that will be the sternum. Behind the sternum will be the heart, and between the lungs, as you can see in this picture, so between the two lungs, and below we have the diaphragm. Diaphragm we have studied in the last class. So this is the diaphragm here. Coming to the internal features of the heart. So inside, how is the heart? The heart is divided into the four chambers, and if briefly it is divided into right and left side, and then it is divided into four chambers. So the heart is divided into two, right and left, by the a septum. There is, this is called as the septum. So between the two atria, that will be called as the interatrial septum. In between the two ventricles, it is called as the interventricular septum. So each side is divided by an atrioventricular valve. So the atrium and the ventricle are divided by the atrioventricular valve. On the left side, it will be left atrioventricular valve, and on the right side will be the right ventricle, which will divide the atrium from the ventricle. So it is formed into two cavities on each side, right and left. An upper chamber, that is the atrium, and the lower chamber, that is the ventricle, both on the right side as well as the left side. Coming to some of the features of each of these chambers of the heart. So the right atrium, the first chamber where all the blood will be collected, all the venous blood from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava will be coming. So this is the first chamber which we are supposed to study, that is the right atrium. This has a thinner wall. This has a thinner wall compared to the ventricle. Ventricles are more thicker compared to the atria. And this right atrium will receive the deoxygenated blood from the blood through the superior and inferior vena cava. As I said, this is the superior vena cava and this is the inferior vena cava, which is draining all the venous blood from the upper part of the body as well as the lower part of the body respectively to the right atrium. So all the deoxygenated blood means impure blood will come to the heart. The blood pumped through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Now this blood which is in the right atrium will be pushed into the right ventricle through the valve here that is called as the tricuspid valve. So this is the right atrioventricular valve, or it has three cusps. So that's what it's called as the tricuspid. Tri means three. Okay, so from where the blood is pumped from the right atrium into the right ventricle. So the right ventricle, as we said before, it is thicker wall than the right atrium. This has a thicker wall, more thicker, because it has to do the work against force and it needs more energy. So it comprises most of the anterior surface of the heart. Okay, circulates deoxygenated blood to the lungs through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary trunk. From here, the blood is pumped into the pulmonary trunk and the pulmonary arteries through a valve. Here there is a valve that is called as the pulmonary valve. All these valves, you should remember what is the function of this valve. They allow only unidirectional flow. They will allow only one direction flow. If the blood tries to go back reverse, it will close. Similarly here also. Okay, the pulmonary valve allow the blood only to go like this. If the blood tries to go reverse, then this valve will close. That is the function of the valve. Coming to the blood which has been pumped into the right ventricle, from the right ventricle to the pulmonary trunk, and from there into the lungs. Here in the lungs, the blood get oxygenated. Now the oxygenated blood will return back to the left atrium. So the left atrium will receive the oxygenated blood. The right atrium, it receives the impure blood, deoxygenated blood from all the parts of the body, but the left atrium will receive the oxygenated blood from the lungs. So receives fresh oxygenated blood from the lungs through four pulmonary veins, two on the right side and two on the left side. Four pulmonary veins open into the left atrium. Okay, through the now the blood from the the left atrium will be pushed into the left ventricle through a valve here. Again, this is called as the left atrioventricular valve, or it is also called as the mitral valve, or it is also called as bicuspid. This is called as tricuspid because it has three cusps, but this has only two. So bi means two valves. So that's why it is called the bicuspid, two cusp valve. Okay. So now the blood has come to the left ventricle. Now this oxygenated blood will be pumped from the left ventricle into the aorta. So this, if you see here, this needs more energy because it has to pump the blood to all the parts of the body. So the left ventricle will be much more thicker, the thickest myocardial wall. Myocardium means the muscle of the wall, that is called as the myocardium. This left ventricle will be the thickest because it has to work hard to push the blood to all the parts of the body through the aorta. So it needs more energy. So it is the thickest myocardial wall. Now this will pump the oxygenated blood to the systemic circulation via the aorta. So this will pump the blood to the systemic circulation. So through the aorta, systemic circulation means to all the parts of the body. So from here, it is pushing the blood to the aorta, and from there to the all the parts of the body. So that is called as systemic circulation. Now coming to the some of the structural wall, the histology of the heart wall, the histology of the heart wall, what you see in under the microscope. The heart wall is composed of three layers of tissue from the surface from inwards. If you cut a small part of this wall, or this part of the wall, then you can see three layers. Outside, we have the pericardium. So this is the pericardium here. Okay, so this whole thing, the pericardium, it has two parts, fibrous and serous, and in between the two serous layer, we have the small serous fluid. This is the visceral layer, this is the parietal layer, and in between there is small fluid. And this is the fibrous pericardium. This is outside. So as we go inside, then we have the next layer that is called as the myocardium. Myo means muscle. Muscle of the heart is called as the myocardium. Peri means outside. Okay, outside the heart, that is called as pericardium. So because it is the covering from outside. Then we have the endocardium. From inside, we have a thin layer of cells that is called as the endocardium. From inside, the whole cavity is smooth because of the endocardium. Endocardium. Now, if you see the pericardium, this is the pericardium here. Outer covering, inside is the heart. The outermost covering is by the pericardium, which we discussed here. So here is the pericardium. So that is the same pericardium. So the pericardium is made up of two sacs, as I said before, fibrous layer as well as the serous pericardium. Outer sac is called as the fibrous pericardium. If you see again this picture, small section has been taken, and if you see here, this is the outermost white layer. This is called as the fibrous pericardium. And then we have the serous pericardium, which has two layers. Visceral pericardium, which is totally adherent to the heart, and outside we have the parietal layer, and between there is a small space filled with fluid. Okay, so this is called as the serous pericardium filled with serous fluid. So this is the inner serous pericardium. Outer we have the fibrous pericardium. The serous pericardium, as I showed you before, this is the two layers of the serous pericardium, visceral and the parietal layer and the small space. The serous pericardium is made up of two layers. The outer layer that is called as the parietal pericardium, this one, and the inner layer called as the visceral pericardium, which is continuous with the parietal pericardium and is adherent to the heart muscle. So it is totally attached to this visceral pericardium, is adherent to the myocardium. The serous membrane consists of the flattened epithelial cells. So the serous pericardium, it is lined by small layers of epithelial cells. It secretes serous fluid. So as I said before, the pericardium space filled with fluid. So small quantity of fluid will be there. So it secretes serous fluid into the space between the visceral and parietal pericardium, parietal pericardium, which allows smooth movement between when the heart beats. When the heart beats, so there is smooth movement between the two layers. So there is no friction because of this small quantity of fluid. Then we have the myocardium. Inside we have the myocardium. This is a thick layer, thick muscle. It is the middle layer made up of the cardiac muscle, and we have studied how the myocardium is different from the other muscles. So it is involuntary muscle because it is supplied by the autonomic nervous system, and the pattern is it is branching. These are the only cells which branch. Neither the skeletal muscle nor the smooth muscle will branch, but this is the typical feature of the myocardium, that they show branching. So the cells, these cells are branching. Okay, branching cells, and they are striated. So there will be striation, thin striation, not like the skeletal muscle, but there will be striations with one or two nuclei. Usually they will have one. Sometimes because of the joining, there will be two nuclei. Okay. So in case of the skeletal muscle, there are multiple nuclei, and in the smooth muscle, there is only one. But in case of the cardiac muscle, there can be 1 to 2 because of the branching. and this form the bulk of the heart wall. As I said, the main thickness is because of the myocardium, the muscle wall. Then we have the endocardium, very thin layer of endocardium. Okay, it is inner lining, smooth surface that permits blood to move easily through the heart without agglutination, means without any what you can call it as the clotting of blood. Okay, without clotting, that is called agglutination. Now coming to the cardiac valves. So we saw that there are valves here between the atrium and the ventricle. There are valves. So between the atrium and the ventricle, these valves are called as atrioventricular, as they are present between the atrium and ventricle. So they are called as atrioventricular valves. So these valves prevent backflow of blood and allow flow of blood in one direction. So as I said before, the main function of this valve is unidirectional flow, only in one direction. If the blood tries to reverse flow, then it will close. Okay. The atrioventricular valves, there are two on the right side and the left side. On the left side, this is the most important. This is called as the left atrioventricular valve. AV valve means atrioventricular valve. Atrioventricular valve. It is also called as the mitral valve, or it is also called as the bicuspid. So you can see here, if you take a section at this level and see, this is the tricuspid and this is the bicuspid. Bi because it has two cusps, contain two cusps, separate the left atrium from the left ventricle. So here is the valve, left atrium. We separate the atrium, left atrium from the left ventricle. Then we have the right AV valve, right atrioventricular wall. This is called a tricuspid. Tri because there are three cusps, 1, 2, and 3. Tri means three. Three cusps are there, so that's why it is called as the tricuspid. Contains three cusps. Separate the right atrium from the right ventricle. So it is separating the right atrium from the right ventricle. Then we have the semilunar valves. Semilunar valves. Okay, semilunar means half crescent moon-like. Okay, so these are the pulmonary valve as well as the aortic valve. Near the pulmonary trunk there is one valve. Near the aorta there is one more valve. So these are called as the pulmonary and aortic valves. Okay, so these guard the pulmonary artery and prevent backflow. This pulmonary valve will prevent the backflow of the blood. Here it will be present pulmonary trunk, so it will prevent the backflow of blood to the right ventricle of the pulmonary trunk. Once it goes, it cannot come back because of this valve. Similarly, we have the aortic valve which guards the aorta. So here is the aorta. So here there is the aortic valve. So it guards the aorta and prevent backflow of blood to the left ventricle. So as you can see here, so the blood can go only in one direction to the aorta. It cannot come back because of this aortic valve. Okay, here you can see again. So this is the pulmonary valve. This is the aortic valve. This is the picture shown. If you take a section, so here you can see here, this is the aortic valve with the pulmonary valve, and here you can see the bicuspid valve or mitral valve, and this is the tricuspid, three cusp. So this is the tricuspid valve here. Now coming to the types of circulation. Circulation are of three types of circulation. One is called as the systemic circulation. So it begins from the left ventricle, as the blood will pump the blood from the left ventricle into the aorta, then it goes to all the parts of the body. That is called as the systemic circulation. So it begins in the left ventricle, where the oxygenated blood passes through the aorta and its branches to reach all the tissues of the body, where exchange of gases and material occurs. The deoxygenated blood will be collected by the small veins and then by the large veins and finally drain into the inferior and superior vena cava. As you can see here, these are the superior and inferior vena cava. So the blood will be pumped to all the parts of the body and it will come back to the superior and inferior vena cava into the right atrium. Okay, so the blood passes from the right atrium to the right ventricle where the circulation ends and a new cycle starts. So this blood pumped from the left ventricle into the aorta to all the parts of the body and it returning back into the right atrium to the superior and inferior vena cava. This is called as the systemic circulation. Then the second is called as pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary means lung. Okay, as we know, the blood which is coming to the right atrium will be pumped into the right ventricle and from there into the pulmonary trunk. From here it divides into the right and left pulmonary arteries and then goes to the lungs. So there will be circulation will be taken. It gets oxygenated. It begins. So it starts the pulmonary circulation. It starts from the right ventricle where the venous blood passes through the pulmonary trunk. As we saw that this is the pulmonary trunk here, and its two branches, the right and left pulmonary artery, goes to the both the lungs, where exchange of gases will occur. The oxygenated blood returns to the left atrium via the four pulmonary veins, as you can see here. So the oxygenated blood will come back to the from the lungs to the left atrium. Okay, from the four pulmonary veins to the left ventricle where the new cycle occurs. So this is called as the pulmonary circulation. So there are two types of circulation: systemic circulation and the pulmonary circulation. Then there is a third type which is of less important but clinically very important. But here major if you compare the major circulation, this is less important, but it has its own clinical importance. This is called as the portal circulation. Portal. It is a type of circulation which is interposed between the capillary beds, the venous blood from the stomach, spleen, pancreas, intestine, which will collect all the nutrition, absorbed nutrition from the stomach and the intestine, is collected into the portal vein, which enters the liver. So it will carry all the nutrition from the intestine and it supplies the liver. Okay, by the portal vein, and divides into many branches which end in the liver sinus. So it will all portal vein ends in the liver sinusoid. So it starts from the stomach, spleen, pancreas, intestine as small branches. Make a big branch, largest vein called as the portal vein, and from there it will drain into the liver sinusoids. Okay, the blood leaves the liver sinusoid by the hepatic veins which end in the inferior vena cava and then to the right atrium. So this type of circulation is called as the portal circulation. Portal circulation. Okay. Now coming to something called as the cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle. What is cardiac cycle? So the heart acts as a pump and its action consists of a series of events known as cardiac cycle. So whenever the heart beats, it has a total cycle, okay, which is called as the systolic and diastolic. During each cardiac cycle, the heart contracts and then relaxes. The period of contraction is called as systole. So whenever the heart pumps, that is called as systole, and when the heart relaxes, that is called as the diastole. So every time the heart contracts, that is called as systole. Whenever it relaxes, that is called as diastole. So these two stages together, that is called as the cardiac cycle, the systole and the diastole. The stages of the cardiac cycle, normal number of cardiac cycles per minute will be 60 to 80. So these two, systole and diastole, so this also called as loved up. Okay, so this beating of the heart, contraction and relaxation, that is the systole and diastole, takes place almost 60 to 80 times per minute. 60 to 80. So each cycle lasts from 0.8 seconds to 1 second. Okay. So it consists of the arterial systole, that is the beating contraction of the atria, then ventricular systole, contraction of the ventricle, then complete cardiac diastole. Diastole means relaxation of the atria and the ventricle. So first the atria will contracts, then the ventricles contract, then the whole heart will relax, atria and the ventricle. So this is called as the complete diastole. Atrial systole, ventricular systole, and then the complete cardiac diastole. So these three things will take place in the cardiac cycle. Now coming to the difference between the different types of vessels which are present in the circulatory system. One is called as the arteries and the arterioles. What is the difference? Then veins and venules, then the capillaries. So what is the difference between these three? The arteries, vessels that carry oxygenated blood from the heart. So these are the arteries which have a thicker wall and they are always patent, round. Okay, these are the arteries, carries oxygenated blood away from the heart, usually carries oxygenated blood. All arteries carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. All usually, we should remember, all arteries will be carrying the oxygenated blood and the venous blood, the deoxygenated blood will be coming to the veins. Okay, except there is exception. For the all arteries will carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. Similarly, veins all carry the deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary veins. So the veins vessel that carry blood towards the heart. So once it is deoxygenated, it will bring it back to the heart. That is called as the veins. Usually carry a deoxygenated blood. All veins carry the deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. So this is the pulmonary vein. You can see the wall is thinner and the lumen is almost collapsing. Okay, this is the difference between the artery and the vein. Artery have a thicker wall and it is rounded lumen, but in case of vein, the wall is thinner and it will be collapsing. Then we have capillaries. These are nothing but the smallest vessels. Small. These are the smallest blood vessels that connect the end arteries and the beginning of the veins. So it is the connection between the arteries and the veins. These are called as very small vessels called as the capillaries, where the actual exchange of gases will take place. So here you can see the picture showing you the artery here, and here is the vein. You can see the artery has a thick wall, thick wall. So you can see a thick. Then compare it with the vein; it has a thinner wall. So the large arteries becomes medium size, smaller and smaller, and then they form capillaries. This is the capillary, the smallest vessels. And from there, the venules will start and they will carry the venous blood back into the circulation. So these small vessels, connection between the arterioles, the smallest arteries are called arterioles, the smallest veins are called as venules. The connection between the arterioles and the venules, this is called as the capillaries. And this place is called as capillary bed. The smallest arterioles break up into a number of minute vessels called as the capillaries. As I said, the smallest vessels, those are called as the arterioles, break up into small vessels called as capillaries. Capillary is a small blood vessel that allow diffusion of gases. So from here, there is diffusion of gases and exchange of gases between the tissue and the blood vessels. So diffusion of gases, nutrition and waste between plasma and the interstitial fluid. The capillary wall consists of a single layer of endothelial cells. If you study the histology, microscopic anatomy, so it will be lined by a thin single layer of endothelial cells. The capillaries form a vast network. There will be a huge network throughout the body where the exchange of gases will take place. Okay, of tiny vessels which link the smallest artery to the smallest vein. So, as I said, the smallest arteries will, those are called arterioles, will connect to this smallest vein that is called as venules. So, this is the connecting point that is called as the capillaries. So, this is the whole process. Circulation, the heart will pump the blood to the arteries, large arteries, then it goes to the medium size, small size, then arterioles, then into the capillaries. From here, the venous blood will start, goes to the smallest venules, small vein, medium size vein, large veins, and back into the heart. This is the whole process of circulation. Coming to the blood vessels of the heart, so the heart will be pumping the blood to all the parts of the body, but how the heart will get its nutrition? This is by a special artery called as the coronary arteries and vein. These will be supplying the heart as well as draining the heart. The coronary arteries will supply the heart wall with oxygenated blood, and the cardiac veins drain the deoxygenated blood from the heart wall. Okay, so this is all about the circulatory system, and if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me now. Any doubts? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.